Hey y'all, so it's Jacolia of Jacolia Gems, and for those of you who know me in person or whom follow me on my social media accounts such as Instagram and Facebook, my first name is Sierra. Jacolia is my middle name, and it is of Hebraic origins, which we'll get into that one day. See, I don't want to be on live too long, but what I want to talk to you guys about tonight is from this playlist that I'm developing from a small segment on my YouTube page called Chava Speaks. So Chava is the name of the biblical Eve, and it is of Afro-Asiatic Hebraic origins. And it is one of the names that's closest in origins and etymology to that of Yahweh. And it means she who speaks to existence. And so by this being the name of the biblical Eve, we see that as an Afro-Asiatic woman, that we have the power to speak those things that be not as though they were. So I was also blessed to start a small business, which some of you have seen, called Chavas Essence. And so with Chavas Essence, I make up herbal baths. This is my Sweet Rose herbal bath, if you guys can see that. It has Epsom salt, Himalayan pink salt in it, thyme, rosemary, oregano. It has fresh roses in it and rose hyssops. I also make yoni steam kits. I like to call them Recam rejuvenation steam kits. This is really good to possibly help with fibroids and cysts and cramps and menstruation. This is recommended for women after their menstrual cycle, recommended for women after childbirth, after trauma, and just on a weekly basis. The herb baths that I make are definitely towards a holistic approach. And so this is to relieve from pain and to operate as a possible astringent, antifungal. I also sell herbal teas for different ailments, possibly. Now, I do not claim cures. However, Essence does not claim cures, does not give medical advice, and is not responsible for allergic reactions. But after this is posted, you can find my website with the link down below, as well as my social medias. So let's get straight into it, guys. So what I wanted to talk to you guys about on today is the swapping in gender roles. And are gender roles a necessity, or are they outdated? And if you see me moisturizing my lip throughout the live, I'm using my own lip oil, Harvest Essence lip oil. This is my hibiscus lip oil. And so, from a holistic Hebraic standpoint, which I tend to come from, even though I'm a pretty non-biased person, I'm a person that loves to look at things from several aspects. So if I bring out different standpoints, it is to possibly combat any comments or any alternate views. I am open to correction. I am always teachable, always pliable. However, with that being said, not to eradicate what I said, I am very traditional in a lot of my standpoints and a lot of my viewpoints. I do realize that the economy has changed a lot within the past 10, 20, 40, 60 years. I understand all of that. And so for some people, gender roles are outdated. And for some of us, gender roles are a necessity. And so by this being Chava Speaks, I want to go into the importance and even the relationship between Adam and Eve. I love to bring things back to a biblical standpoint, to a holistic standpoint, to a psychological, social, and economical standpoint, and just a realistic overview. So when we look at Adam, we see that Adam was a man, Adome, who was believed to be the first man created in the garden out of the dirt of the ground. And so we all know the story, but before Hava or Eve came into play, Adam had to first be able to do a few things, which was to prove himself to Yahweh Elohim, to his creator, to his progenitor, to the one who formed and fashioned him and breathed the Ruach HaKodesh, breathed the Ruach or the breath of life on the inside of him to make him a living soul. And so Adam had the responsibility of naming the animals, naming the environment that which was around him. And so in Hebraic culture, but just in life and anything, a thing and a person will become that which you name it, which is why names are very, very, very important. And so Adam had to have the responsibility to name, which means that he had to have the eye in order to be able to identify the characteristics in these animals, in these plants, in these things, so that they can become that which it is that he named them. So he had to have eye, he had to have foresight, he had to have knowledge, he had to have these all of these abilities on the inside of him before a woman was ever formed. He had to have the ability to upkeep. He had to be responsible, had to have accountability, had to follow instruction because he was given instruction about what to eat, about what to touch, about how to go about life. So he had to have a certain amount of discipline before a woman was ever made and taken out of him. He had to have a certain amount of infrastructure before a woman was ever given to him. There was a need and a necessity for a woman via the eyesight and the discernment of his creator. Yet woman was not rewarded to him because it's a reward. It's something that he had to work towards, something that he had to earn, not something that was easily given to him. Yet it was identified that there was a lack that was in Adam, because he said that it's not good for man to be alone, because when all of these animals were made, they were made in when the earth or the terra, the land was formed, they had seed to go into it in order to blossom. And naturally, man be seed, woman be earth, woman be ground, woman be land. Line before Yahweh Elohim ever became a master surgeon and anesthesiologist and put him to sleep and began to cut and make a surgical incision and began to take out that extra rib in order to form that which it is that he would find beautiful, that which it is that he would find necessity. He looked at her and said, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. He began to recognize that seen, but it became something that was whole. When you have a man that can recognize that the black woman is a necessity unto him, then he will never want to swap out his gender roles when he is allowed and able to have himself in a balance standpoint. See, Adam was not fully balanced when it came to Eve. Adam allowed how Eve made him feel, how Eve made him move in order to dictate. He allowed the headship to go from Yahweh Elohim, to go from himself, to go to woman, because he began to take from woman without any question. Because woman, just based on how I read the text, based upon comparison to the Ugaritic culture and the Egypt, um, and the Near Eastern cultures, the woman, a lot of people say she's God, and when they say these things, it goes over people's head. And that's why it's very important that when we look at Chava and Chava speaks, it's not an equation to the Most High, but it's saying that a woman has the power to create and to destroy. If we look at the book of Proverbs, it talks about a foolish woman, a woman who casts down and tears down her house with her voice, with her clamorous works and her deeds, because she has the ability to create and the ability to destroy. She is the intercessor and the eyes and the rib. The rib begins to protect vital organs. If the rib is begin to fracture, then it's easily for the lungs to get punctured. It's easier for these different things to seep in, even scientifically speaking. So in a relationship, if the rib becomes fractured, if the fragrance of the house is thrown off, if that woman is not operating in the dynamic that was called to her, then the entire infrastructure of the house will not prosper the way that it needs to prosper. So when we come into modern day terminology and we begin to look at the polar opposite dynamics of maybe our grandparents, and for some of us, our parents' relationship versus what it is that we see now, we see a lot of excuses being made, and we are not bypassing the fact that the cost of living has gone up. We are not bypassing the fact that a lot of times women back then did not work, And it's not because they had lack of skill. A lot of times women back then did not work because the 40-hour work week was developed for one person, because traditionally women stayed at home and they raised their children. Once again, if we go to Proverbs, when Chokmah, which is the mother, Chokmah is the mother that was there in creation along with the Elohim, along with our power. And it says that Chokmah begins to give out instructions and choke my children. And so the book of Proverbs and the book of Solomon, was written, and it was talking about a king. And when we look at Proverbs, I believe the first chapter and especially the 8th chapter, a woman was giving her son the law. The woman, the mother, is the first teacher of the household. She is the one who was breaking down the understanding. Father is there to give instruction. Father is there to give provision. Father is there to give protection. Father is there to provide a warmth, to provide a balance, to provide a certain level of discipline. That's not saying that the mother does not discipline, but the mother in Chokmah comes in to bring in a balance and begins to break down where father may not speak. Father may not give you an explanation, but then mother, in her infinite wisdom, in her infinite understanding, she steps into her femininity to begin to take over, to nourish them children while father is out to work. And see, these are things that I saw with my own eyes. Growing up, my grandparents, my father parents, they were blessed to be married for 54 years before my grandfather passed away in 2016. And I would watch my grandfather go to work, and he would come home on his lunch break. And I remember his van pulling up because he worked for Illinois Bell. And he would come in, and my grandmother would have him lunch cooked every single day. My granddaddy didn't have to eat in the street. He really didn't even like eating restaurant food. We would go out to eat as a family, and he would literally not eat because Yvonne cooked for her man. Yvonne also, and it's not disrespectful about calling my grandmother by her first name. She don't play that. She also was a hardworking woman. She worked at the Tribune. But when she had my father, and then she had my uncle about 7 years later, my grandfather told her, come off work so that you can be at home with your children, so that you can be at home with your grandchildren, if that's what you desire to do. So she came off work and she became a homemaker. But that man brought home his check to her every Friday, and she kept them bills in order. My parents, I had a 2-parent household as well before my mom passed away almost a month ago in 2 days. And my parents were blessed to be together for 37 years. They were married for 36 years. And I had a 2-parent household of 2 working parents. However, in the beginning of the marriage, because my father was blackballed, he stayed home with me for 9 months. So I understand that there are times and instances where a man will have to stay at home, but yet as a man, from what it is that I believe, that's not his first option. Now, what I do not believe in is putting my 2 cents into people individual marriages. Whatever it is that works for you, works for you. I'm talking about Hebraic culture. I'm talking about bringing balance back to the earth realm. I'm talking about if men want women to operate in their full femininity, then when have these gender roles become swapped out? We are living in a dispensation right now where you have men calling women gold diggers for wanting a man who take care of them. I'm not talking about the chick who only date men for money, and I'm even talking about the woman. I think it's hypergamy. If I'm wrong, I'll correct myself. Hypergamy is one of those words. Where she only dates a man in a certain tax bracket. That I cannot be mad at. It doesn't mean that she thinks that she's too good for certain men in other tax brackets, but even if she does feel as if she's too good based off of her own qualifications and her own needs and her own desires, men do it. That's the difference between a gold digger and being a woman who has a certain requirement on paper for themselves. Why is it now wrong for women to require that a man be a provider? And when I say be a provider, I don't mean one of the women who will sit back and watch her man go broke, who will sit back and her man is working all of these hours and she just buying up expensive things and she's running his bills into the ground. I'm not talking about a woman who half cook and half clean and half pleases her man and all of these things and takes him for granted and his hard work. I'm talking about the woman that is still traditional in her standpoint, who said that even if I work a 40-hour work week, I just want to be able to pick up the utilities, or I just want to be able to pick up my own car insurance, or let me take my money and put that to savings, or let me take my money and that be an emergency fund. Let that be the fund money. Let that be the money that we need. Let me take my money like the Proverbs 31 woman did, because she was at home while her husband was sitting out at the gate. She was at home sewing. She had a small business. She was able to plan and she was able to take care of her children. But the only way that her husband was able to sit out at the gate is because he left something at home so that she can depend on it. I'm talking about these women who build up their homes, who teach their children, whether it's homeschooled or in school. And honestly, having your child in school and then them coming home, personally, is a lot harder than actually homeschooling them, because not only do you have to teach them what's going on at school, but then you have to break down things to them in their own culture and teach them history from their side. So it's twice as much work. I'm talking about the women who believe in holy submission, not wholly submission, not wholly submitting to any Tom, Dick, and Harry, not submitting to a man that is not your husband. Submission is for marriage and marriage only. A man should see that you are able to listen. A man should be able to see that you are able to understand and that you are able to follow. But any man that requires you to submit from him to him before he operates fully as head in your life is a man that is out of order. We have a lot of women out here who are hyper independent and not realizing that this is a traumatic response. I am not championing women to become codependent. I am not championing women to depend on men to take care of them. I am not championing a woman to be blindly and not to have her own money set to the side for her. If you know that from which I come from, then you know that ain't even a type of stock. And that's not even a type of toolage that I was born and raised under. I'm talking about a man that is going to be able to come and lift a load off of a woman, a man that is able to identify maybe she's not where it is that she needs to be financially yet because of different things in life, but I see the caliber of woman that she is. I see her mind. I want to invest in her. I want to build her up. I want to speak life on the inside of her. I want to take a load off of her. A man that is like that, who can identify as Adonai, begin to identify Eve without placing Chava above, is a man that will allow a woman to blossom and to grow, because we are likened unto a garden. And if he be seed, it is his job to water us as Christ, as Yeshua by Yosef begins to water the church, to begin to water Israel, his nation. So when we swap out these gender roles and we make women chase, and not realizing that women become hyper independent as a traumatic response from being left alone, from being fatherless, from mothers making their daughters have to get up and go to work and paying bills, and I don't need a man mentality. A real man, based off of my experience and speaking to real men, are offended when a woman touches a door around him. He's offended when a woman touches a check around him. He's offended at certain things because you are not allowing him to be a man. It don't mean he think that you broken. He think that you easy. It shows him that, man, she ain't used to this type of treatment. There's nothing wrong with picking up a tip, but woman, it's not your job to be a man. It is never your job to operate outside of that which is supposed to be natural. A man gonna know you're a boss, and he gonna know about your business when he runs into you. It's not your job to prove that to him. It's your job to be yourself and to operate to who you are. And because I know a lot of people are like, oh, that's outdated. The word submission is like a curse word these days. It's like a word that hurts people because we don't realize the power and the beauty in submission, one to another, man to wife, not just, oh, woman, you're down here and you are lowly. No, that means that I can surrender to the cause and to the purpose and to the plan, to the betterment of our future, of our family dynamic, to the whole holistic aspect. But when we have women out here shaming other women for wanting to be loved, for wanting to be catered, for wanting to be taken care of, for wanting to cook, for wanting to clean, for wanting to please a man, they are called pick. To work, who wants to have a family, who wants to spoil and dote over and cater to his woman, he's called a simp. So now we have a lot more men out here who want relationships and a lot more women who like, I'm good, because a lot of women have given their heart in instances when they should not have. And a lot of men are dwindling down on their years and they're older now and they're balding and they have dead bods and erectile dysfunction. So now they want to get married when a woman is hitting her peaks in her 30s and her 40s and her sexual highs like she did in her 20s. So now we have all of this swapping out and a whole bunch of confusion. So my question on today is, has the change in gender roles done us more of a service or a disservice by opening up women to entrepreneurship and to their own bag and to higher education, by the Black woman being the highest earned bachelor's and master's degree and the number one entrepreneur, but the Black woman is also the number one spender. And the Black church knows that, which is why they go after her plight as her pain. But that's another video. We're going to wrap up our segment today with Chava Speaks. Ask that you guys like, comment, and subscribe. All the links will be left down below. Till we speak again. Thank you guys for viewing.